Hello, this is my presentation on lies and truth and other stuff, an analysis of Mitchell's image and Umberto Eco's Library of the World. So I want to start with truth and the nature of truth, which are not topics that are widely explained in Umberto Eco's Library of the World. In fact, it is a theme that is widely contrasted by Eco's love of untruths and put under a spectral understanding. The best way to explicate this is through an anecdote that Eco gives about the mediation of information through television. So he talks about an advert that shows up selling the best cakes in his world, by which his daughter asks whether it's true, and he says, no, you can't believe everything they say on TV. And then a hurricane warning appears on the news, and then the daughter thinks it's fake, and then he says, accept the news, they tell the truth. And then a minister is talking on the TV, and the daughter insists that it's true. No, no, no. Not when a politician is talking. So here, truth in this sense is a semantic relation between signs and the interpretant societal context. The information signifiers and the relation to the referent can widely change on how the interpreter understands what they're being told, especially through a form of mediation like the television. The contextual information of the interpretant shapes how the information is viewed. That could really explain why so many ads for adult products cater to children. Their interpretive context is so limited to their interests, and it's much easily susceptible to information that is backed by like their favorite Paw Patrol character. Researching more into the status of truth, I found something I quite liked about Roland Barthes's analysis of myths and culture as something continuously repeated, stripped of historical context, and shifting the relationships between the sign and the signifier, and reaching a return to the absolution of an objective truth. So with this slight understanding of the implications of what we know as truths, I want to shift the focus to a more prevalent comparison in Eco's documentary, which is the relationship between memory, fiction, and lies, and how they are highly applicable to understanding the critical terms chapter on the image by Mitchell. So for Eco, falseness in fiction is much nicer than truth because it concerns itself not with a knowledge based on rationality or empiricism, but with a creative exploration and investigation. Fiction, as he defines is a pact of pretending, an irrefutable foundation of truth where the author and the reader connect in the creation of worlds. Much like his anecdote about two figures that clash on religious foundations but are forced to agree that Clark Kent is Superman. But this relation doesn't just concern itself with the pact of pretending, but it is also a relation based greatly on the interpretant's notion of rationality, or at least their over-encompassing contextual notion of perceptive truth. If a person has never heard of Superman or Clark Kent, how would they accept their relation as an irrefutable truth? When Mitchell defines the mind as a medium of image reproduction, he takes into account the internalization of images as a subjective mental process that influence perception along with the embodiment of sensuous experience. Even images themselves are argued by Mitchell to refer to mental processes like memory and fantasies. Hence, when understanding images, the role of truth and meaning behind them is shaped by the context of the minds that perceive it. Thus, the role of the image leads to a complication of the foundation of truth and a collective knowledge in Eco's terms, as well as the development of the lie. An example that is slightly sensitive is on the point of religion. It is a great area when it comes to academic or semantic analysis of truth, since it's a topic that cannot be proven or disproven. It bases its authority on the pact of pretending, similar to that of fiction. The retelling of stories, the historical imagery, and the faith the interpreter has on the knowledge he believes are all collective pacts of believing a larger narrative. Now, I apologize if any of this offends. I'm not a theologist, and I do believe religion is a fundamental part of society. However, a correlation can be seen, for example, with Eco's obsession with Kirche. The German scholar utilized various forms of images to explain falsities in a way that create almost an academic rationality. In a similar sense, religion uses this imagery to justify existence, moral structure, and answer the questions that an individual craves answers to. It's a pact of pretending to have an irrefutable truth behind things that can't be answered by structural investigation. Who are we? Who is behind it all? Eco even makes the comparison of these inherent needs of the human for spiritual investigation with the popularity of detective mysteries, the whodunit of existence, essentially. Eco describes fiction, simply put, history conjures ghosts, but fiction creates truth in flesh and blood. So I bring up the topic of religion because it connects heavily to the themes mentioned in the chapter of the image. Mitchell refers to the images as visual resemblances that elicit a strong emotional response to sort of like an ideological need of the consumer. Images become idolatrous when the perceptor gives them power, needed to fulfill their underlying longing for subversion, to fill a hole that what the image resembles does. Like Mitchell's example with sugar substitutes aren't sugar, but they fill the need for it. Their individuals are placed sort of under the mercy of the image to slightly navigate a lost sense of individuality. Thus, when an image is deeply manipulated, and external forces utilize the power of resemblance to coerce for their own benefit, the power of what Eco considers to be a lie can shape their presumed objective truth. So regarding this topic of lies, Mitchell's description in his section of senses and signs regards the default definition of an image as a sign or symbol by way of sensuous resemblance. This resemblance, as he argues, is what gives an image the sense of iconic status or perceptive power over the interpreter. Now, pushing the definition forward, Eco's semiotic definition of a sign helps us understand the nature of an image. He describes signs as anything that can be utilized to tell a lie. Then he defines lies as a way for one person to coerce the other to believe the opposite of truth. When images already have the power of resemblance and the subconscious effect of symbols, it opens the door for the usage of their coercion. In the documentary's first chapter, I'm going to shift gears a little bit. Memory is described as a fundamental aspect of building a future. The collective memory of the library functions as a way to preserve knowledge and as a medium for the memory to extract information that is useful. For Eco, to have knowledge is to be alive. When we utilize the internet as a form of collective memory, there is no way of filtering the useful information. It becomes saturated with what Mitchell calls the production of imagistic equivalent of junk food. Eco states that for one to know as much information as possible, one has to remove as much information as possible and share collective knowledge based on human relation, not individual gluttony of the abundance of information. If billions of people have access to limitless informations, individuals have substantiated contextual realities based on mass consumption of artificial documentation and imagery. We don't share new knowledge with each other. We share it with this platform. So on this note, Eco states that an overload of information leads to the belief that we have an endless memory. This idea removes our memory and knowledge, leaving us with only the knowledge and images that resemble that which has most power over us, what we long for. There lies the space for exploitation. When we don't have a collective memory, we don't have a collective future, and progress will be dictated by those who gain the most from our subversion. So another of Mitchell's concerns regarding the image is the conception of the digital image as it relates to its manipulation and their linkage to the real. The development of AI is now a reality, and for Mitchell, since with the creation of the image, man destroys God, our own creation will be the end of us. I initially took this interpretation as the literal erasure of human necessity on Earth, robots taking over information created by artificial intelligence, taking over our own intelligence. But after watching Umberto Eco's documentary, I started to alter my interpretation of Mitchell's argument. When we alter history and reality with lies, what we end up damaging is the knowledge available and in the end, our own collective memory. To sprint forward, an athlete must back up, as Eco says, and if the knowledge we utilize is rotten, we won't be able to progress as a society. So returning to this connection between images, symbols, and lies, if an image is a symbol that resembles a longing for something that is missing, then it's easy to understand images as a tool for movements based on hatred and lies. As Eco puts it, hate is generous, and forms of fascism, racism, etc. are created by manipulation that feeds the collective paranoia. Even Eco stated that the human animal has a capacity to imagine and communicate absence. And understanding Mitchell's text is key to understanding how power and idolatry of the image fills this absence and changes collective perception and memory. So I want to wrap up this presentation with a theme at the end of the documentary that stood out to me, specifically because it connects to a Spanish saying I heard most of my life. El que no cree en Dios, a cualquier santo le reza. He who does not believe in God prays to any saint. I don't see this in a religious sense, but the image of God as a sort of pact of collective moral contract. If individuals do not have a ground point for their structure, their morality will be exploited, and they will be more susceptible to a replacement of such with the lies and manipulations that rule the world today. If images resemble anything we adhere to, then the lack of structure will remove Echo's understanding of being alive. Knowledge is being alive. So I want to end things with a quote that I really liked at the end of the documentary, which states that God isn't found in noise, but it is found in silence. We must be critical of what type of memory we want to indulge in, whether it's one that is based on a collective society or one that is prone to create fake idolatrous imagery. Thank you very much.